Your Excellency, distinguished ladies and gentlemen, can you see me from behind this microphone? Yeah, but it has nothing to do with my height. I keep telling people I'm not short, I'm just altitudinally challenged. And I'm comforted by my wife who tells me I might be short, but not short of anything. Thank you once again for being a part of this experience. The relaunch of IWED, Institute for Workforce Education and Development. Before we get into the details, we're going to thrill you with some music. How about that? And we're going to welcome violinist Giovanni Williams. And if the surname there rings a bell, then yes, son of John Williams. Thank you very much, Giovanni Williams. Can we hear it one more time for Giovanni Williams? What an honor, a pleasure, and a privilege for me to serve in this capacity as MC for this very significant relaunch of the Institute for Workforce Education and Development. The Institute has attained higher level education status under the University Council of Jamaica and tertiary education institution by the Jamaica Tertiary Education Commission. The Institute for Workforce Education and Development Limited, or IWED for short, a rather curious acronym there, IWED, is that once you become a part of the Manpower and Maintenance Services Limited group, you become wedded to the group, maybe, yeah. But anyway, it's so that's why we're here. It's the relaunch, and we're very, very pleased to have with us all the very important stakeholders who are here. We want to acknowledge former Governor General, His Excellency Sir Kenneth Hall. It says a lot about those who were able to get Sir Kenneth to be here, because, well, I hadn't seen him in a while. Yes, when I grow up, I want to be like you, retired. Right, so thank you very much, Sir Kenneth, for gracing us with your presence. Want to acknowledge as well the gentleman in whose constituency we find ourselves this morning, Mr. Julian Robinson, Member of Parliament for Southeast St. Andrew. Yes, thank you very much. And the videographer had asked if I could help him to manage this side of the room. So we're going to impose a state of public emergency on this side, because once you stand up, you'll be right in front of the camera. So we're going to ask you, we're not abrogating your rights here, but we're just asking you if you could not stand, and if you have, well, yeah. Videographer, we've done what you've asked us to do. So thank you very much for your understanding in that regard. We want to acknowledge representatives, and there are quite a number of representatives. After all, this is a big occasion. This is a significant move, and therefore all the key stakeholders. So if you don't mind, for example, we have representatives from the Jamaica Tertiary Education Commission, Dr. Damian Black, Commissioner and Executive Director, Mrs. Althea Heron, Executive Director of the University Council of Jamaica, Paulette Shand, representing Heart NSTA Trust, also here. We have representatives from the private sector, Ms. Maria Wedderburn, Young Entrepreneurs Association, Mrs. Cordell Williams Graham, the President, and Student Representative, Mr. Carlton Wilson. The Institute for Workforce Education and Development has as its chairman Mr. Wayne Chen. And we also have, well, this morning I learned that we're going to have a new principal for IWED. I know she's here. I met her this morning. Is it Karen? Karen Gale, yes. So she's going to be taking over from Mrs. Verika Bennett Davidson. So these are some of the stakeholders. We also are expecting the Minister of Education, the Honorable Favour Williams, to join us. Right, because you know how it is, ministers having multiple functions. So she's going to be joining us in a little while from now. In the meantime, though, we'd like to get right into the program in terms of the official part of the program. So we're going to invite, and as the program goes on, we'll acknowledge some other key stakeholders. But in the meantime, we're going to invite Mr. Denworth Finnegan, Vice Chair of IWED, to lead us in prayer.
Good morning, everyone. I want you to take an attitude of reverence to the Almighty. And as we do, I want to remind you of a very popular passage of Scripture, the 23rd division of the Psalm, which said, "The Lord is my shepherd," and that's relationship. "I shall not want," and that's supply. "He maketh me to lie down in green pastures," and that's rest. "He leadeth me beside the still waters," that's refreshment. "He restoreth my soul," that's healing. "He leadeth me in the path of righteousness," that's guidance. "For his name's sake," that's purpose. "Yea, though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death," that's testing. "I will fear no evil," that's protection. "For thou art with me," that's faithfulness. "Thy rod and thy staff, they comfort me," that's discipline. "Thou preparest a table before me in the presence of thine enemy," that's hope. "Thou anointest my head with oil," that's consecration. "My cup runneth over," that's abundance. "Surely goodness and mercy shall follow me all the days of my life," that's blessing. "And I will dwell in the house of the Lord," that's security, forever, that's eternity. This is the God we call on now as I pray. O Lord, our Father, we're happy that you're the good shepherd. And we call upon you now because we recognize that unless you are involved, we build in vain. And so we pray, Almighty God, that you'll condescend upon this building and guide our deliberations. Be with this ceremony this morning, the relaunch. We pray for you to have endowed the founder, Mrs. Inchcliffe, with this great idea to impact the lives of those who are most vulnerable among us, our young people. We recognize, God, that education and training is akin to redemption, and our young people need to be redeemed from waywardness. And so, Almighty God, we thank you for bringing this group together, stakeholders involved in education and training. We pray that as collective minds, you will guide us towards a better Jamaica. And so we recommit this organization, IWED, into your hands. And we pray, God, that you will be with its functionaries. And Father, we pray that you will be with the ceremony today. And for those young people that this institution will impact, may they have a connection with you. Almighty God, we recognize that we're living in a very dangerous time as we approach the end of time. And so we pray, God, that you will prick the hearts of those who are comfortable and comfort those who are disturbed. And may we look up to you, who is the author and finisher of our faith. And dear Father, we recognize that you are interested in our well-being this morning, because you sit high, you look low, and you rule over the affairs of men. And so we ask you to guide this deliberation. But more importantly, God, may each and every one of us recognize the nearness of your coming, because you said you have gone to prepare a place for us, and you will return someday to receive those who are faithful unto you. Help each and every one of us to be faithful. Thank you for hearing. Thank you for answering our prayers. In Jesus' name I pray. Amen. Amen.
Thank you very much. I almost said Reverend Finnegan. Bishop. Yes, more like it. No, there are no mistakes in life, you know. You have a schedule and someone is supposed to speak. That person is not here. Somebody else gets that opportunity. Many are called, few are chosen. So you were chosen this morning. Thank you very much for that powerful prayer, Mr. Finnegan. Now there's a lady here who can get any, well, let's welcome the opposition spokesman on education, mathematician. Welcome, Damian Crawford. Good to have you in our midst. And yes, so a very special lady who can get, I'm sure you'd agree, any one of us in this room to do anything. She's that powerful. She's that powerful. In fact, I would imagine that she was the person they had in mind when they started that series. You remember, Powerful Men and Women Perform for Charity? Right. This is exactly. This is one powerful woman here, and we're so pleased and blessed and honored to be in her space. And she's going to bring opening remarks at this point. Please welcome CEO of Manpower and Maintenance Services Limited, Ms. Audrey Hinchcliffe. Welcome.
Thank you, Mr. Master of Ceremonies. If I'm a little bit emotional, forgive me. I deserve it, and I earn the right to be emotional. Good morning. Durban has welcomed our guests and dignitaries, but I feel compelled to go over it again. Former Governor General, Sir Kenneth Hall, who gave me a heart attack by walking into this room this morning. Welcome, sir. Our minister is at a function, a youth function this morning. She will join us in good time to address us. Our Senator, Damian Crawford, I'm so glad you made it much faster than I thought, because I was going to give an excuse for you, but here you are. We are so blessed to be in the constituency of my colleague, Mr. Julian Robinson. Welcome, sir. We have so many agency heads here. Damian have gone through some of them, but I'm so overwhelmed that all who were invited are here this morning. It shows the relationship that we have, and it will even be stronger going forward. We have with us here also some of our key clients, and one of our first major clients, Jamaica Social Investment Fund. I'm so happy. Mr. Sweeney has sent a representative. When we started out to deal with the lowest of the low, to clean them up, to train them and what have you, the first agencies that came out and financed were JSIF. And here you are with us this morning. So welcome to all our clients. Welcome to our partners who have seen IWED as fit to be their training arm. Young Entrepreneurs Association goes way back when I was president of the JEF and established that organization. And today, we have a formal agreement to be their training arm. It doesn't come better than that. Donors and funding agencies have a representative here this morning, because I think more recently you would have heard the work that we have done in Montego Bay, and it was in the news all over, funded by USAID. But there have been others, but that was the most recent one. So I welcome the donor agencies who have seen it fit to use IWED to train and certify workers. We have here this morning the board members of IWED, led by our chairman, new chairman, Mr. Wayne Chen, and we regret that the outgoing chairman, Dr. Kenyu Thompson, couldn't make it here with us. We have board members of Manpower and Maintenance Services Limited. I think I see Mrs. Velma Brown Hamilton here and Mr. Lance Hilton. Those are board members of Manpower, who is the parent, as you know, of IWED, and the board members of IWED themselves who are here. The trainers, the staff, contract and full-time staff of IWED, they're here with us this morning. And of course, some of the key persons from Manpower and Maintenance Services Limited, because we have what's called shared services, and they really do the backroom work for each other for IWED. I see the media represented here as well, and walking into the room, he just happens to be my neighbor, Mr. Al Edwards, from the finest, one of the finest papers, Our Today, and I'm sure he'll talk to you about subscribing. Welcome, my neighbor. So, colleagues all, greetings from the Institute of Workforce Education and Development, which is a wholly owned subsidiary. Oh, I need to address those persons who are listening via YouTube, overseas, and locally. We welcome you too. IWED is a wholly owned subsidiary of Manpower and Maintenance Services Limited group of companies. It has emerged from being the training unit within the MMS Human Resource Department, where recruitment, training, and placement became the underpinning of superior facilities maintenance services. So impressed were our valued clients with MMS-trained workers that they started requesting training for their workers as well, who were carrying out similar services in-house and asking for courses for other categories of their workers. The growing call for training and certification signaled to MMS that a business was at hand. Hence, in response, IWED was launched in 2005. Fast forward today, we are here to relaunch and celebrate yet another phase in the development, growth, and expansion of IWED as it takes its place as a higher education institution registered, as you heard, by the University Council of Jamaica, and a higher education broker and provider registered by the Jamaica Tertiary Education Commission, JTEC. Additionally, you may not know, IWED is also an accredited training organization for NCTVET and an independent school under the Ministry of Education and Youth. In this regard, we can say, we have grown. We will hear more about IWED's status and future outlook later in the program from the report to be presented by our Director of Education and Training, Mrs. Verica Bennett-Davidson. I want to go back a little bit. In 2000 and I think it was 15, IWED relaunched as the ATO. The then head of HEART, I may have the year wrong, was Dr. Caroline Hale. She's here with us today. She was the guest speaker at that time. So like before, she's still with us. Permit me to boast a little bit about this building we are in here at 17 Eureka Crescent in Crossroads, Kingston, Jamaica. Today, you are sharing in the presentation of this building from Manpower to IWED to become its headquarters. Our project manager, Mr. Peter James, is on hand to present us with the architect's rendition of what the facility would look like upon completion of after the planned renovation and build out. Because what you're seeing here, there's another whole section behind this wall, and we'll be going up 2 more floors. So you'll get to see what that's going to look like. Today's event is being held in this building as a symbol akin to a groundbreaking at a site for construction of a facility. We are laying down the marker that proudly we here today are the first to claim we are indeed in IWED's headquarters. I want to thank the team who have made this possible. Project manager, Mr. Peter James, and in preparing this room, I owe him so much. I came here and there was a project manager painting the building himself. Doesn't come better than that. We have Miss Nadine Williams, our office manager, who is a little person who works around the clock to make it happen. We have a little worker bee called Alex, who worked tireless. Is he here? I mean, when I say little, he's really little, and like a bee, but so he works. We have the other persons who made it happen. Michael Duncan, Director of Operations, Gerald Patterson in charge of property, our marketing manager, Ms. Sandra Letts, and of course the cleaning and sanitation team under Mr. Ahijah Brown, the Director of Facilities Maintenance Services, and other contractors who have done everything to make us, make this room available for us. We have Media Central, Mrs. Janet Morgan Green and her able colleague Webster Walker, who will drive you crazy to make sure that everything is in place, because she would not want to be associated with it if it doesn't look right. Thank you, Janet and Webster, for your professional work that always make a place look spiffy. Others who I have not mentioned specifically, please forgive me, but you are no less important, such as the oversight by the IWED team, Verica Bennett-Davidson, our new principal, Karen Gale, Renee Campbell, she's in charge of student services, unfortunately was admitted to hospital last night. Like me, she's a diabetic and her sugar is out of control, so they had to take her in. But if you get to know Renee, she is another worker bee in support of these things. So we all wish her a speedy recovery. I want to take this opportunity to welcome our new chairman, my friend and colleague, Mr. Wayne Chen, and our new principal, Ms. Karen Gale. You'll hear from them later. I want to thank the outgoing chairman, Dr. Kanu Thompson, who was the first to lead the Board of Management, holding IWED to good governance practices. Up to last night, he thought he would have been here, but he lives in Mandeville, and something came up, he would not have been able to make it here on time. I want to thank the Technical Advisory Committee, chaired by Dr. Ferrero. She'll be in a little later as well. They ratify IWED courses. Our clients who keep us busy with contracts, and I mentioned one before, for training and certification, representatives here today. And I want to mention specifically the GSS. GSS, do you know who that is? That's the Global Services Sector. BPOs, what have you, because they have this exciting training program, and we are so happy, we are so lucky to be selected to be among those training the staff. You'll hear more from Mrs. Bennett-Davidson. The area that is exciting to us, that is developing, is the interest being shown by related institutions, businesses and trade associations who are seeking partnership and alliances with IWED. You'll hear more about these also from Mrs. Davidson. Colleagues, clients, friends, team members, I thank you all for your continued support for IWED and the other companies who make manpower a part of their team. The other companies in the group, let me quickly share. Manpower Maintenance Limited is the parent company, which is the child of Caribbean Health Management Consultants Limited, the firm that fed me when I was starving before I started Manpower. Of course, Here we have IWED. We also have Manpower Maintenance Business Services Limited, which we do labor management. Some of our more prominent companies in this country, we manage their staff. And we have Miss Lindsay at the back, who is the project manager and work hand in glove with Manpower HR department, led by Miss Monica Young, the director, who is also here with us. We have Manpower Maintenance Sales and Distribution Company. I don't know if Mr. Mitchell Watson is here. They were in Montego Bay at the investment conference, but should have been arriving here sometime this morning. We also have Manpower Property Services, recently launched, because Manpower is property rich. And we have to put it under one umbrella, and of course, a number of clients who are now asking us to manage the property services for them. We also take corporate social responsibility very seriously. When you have over 3,000 workers, their communities, different agencies, their children, it gives us a rich field from which to choose projects. So we have Manpower and Maintenance Foundation, which we support health, education, and sports. Only last week, I was at Excelsior, my alma mater, launching a program and making a donation. Then we have Empower, not Manpower, Empower Women's Group, through which we are aiming to empower women through education and employment. And we have already started awarding scholarship to the daughters of our workers. Manpower has over 75, maybe 80% female worker population. Right. But today, the spotlight is on IWED. Because when you have a country which is reported that over 70% of the workforce is not certified, I don't know if it's still that, maybe Hart or somebody can verify that. But that's a whole business there by itself. And that's why we are a workforce institution. Regardless of our status, we will not be mimicking other colleges when we get to be a university college. We are sticking with the workforce. And you will hear from students. Following this event this morning, we will be having a graduation ceremony next door in our auditorium. You're all invited. Manpower is leading the charge for certifying our own workers. And we have a group who are graduating today from level 2 up to level 5, which is the equivalent of a bachelor's degree this afternoon. And so I think my legacy is safe, to leave a trained workforce for this country, my beloved Jamaica, and beyond. Thank you.
In Jamaican parlance, we would say big things are going. Wonderful. Another round of applause for Ms. Hinchcliffe. And now we're going to hear from the opposition spokesman on education, Senator Damian Crawford.
Thank you. Thank you very much. In a room of so many dignitaries, it will take me a very long time to recognize all. However, I'm seeing here two people that have been extensive in their contribution to my own development, former principal, most importantly to me, but also former Governor General, Sir Hall. How are you doing, sir? Good afternoon. Good morning. I also would love to recognize a lecturer of mine, Dr. Hale. So the level of lecturers you have, you have to look at me and see if you are happy with how I came out. If you're not happy, Dr. Hales is the answer to that. If you're happy, you can keep her on. Sir Chen, Director, Chairman, I thank you, sir, for your contribution and continuous willingness to serve in all entities in Jamaica. I see members of the media, a classmate of mine, Sir Brown, Ahijah. Yes, I am proud of what you are doing as well. And of course, a lady whose legacy is concrete in this country and well made, Mrs. Hinchcliffe. When you called me this morning, I was on the way to the farm. So I had to turn around, take off my water boots, and put on my gentleman, and make sure I headed here. But I myself know of the value, and of course, Sir Julian Robinson, yes, welcome. I know of the value of manpower because I hired manpower for my farm to do some cleaning. And manpower cleaned the folk up so good that we wanted to change it into staff quarters. It was spick and span. If you were in charge of the training of those persons who came to the farm, then every single entity in this country should want your intervention in training their staff. They were excellent in what they did. But I'm here to thank you for what you're doing for the country in the first place because you're exhibiting vision. Vision that persons like myself and Julian who are going into business can use as an example and a motivation of how we can grow our own entities from where we are started to what now is a multi-unit. You named from Empower and Manpower and IWED, but you started with one and you grew with vision, and now your vision is coming to the forefront. That vision is necessary for the development of any country, and you serve as an example of vision. You also serve as an example of identifying where there is a space to respond and appropriately responding. I was reading a World Bank report this morning, and it said in the last 5 years, 185,000 Jamaicans went through our 11th grade and CXC. Only 47,000 got 5 subjects. So 100 and almost 40,000 did not get the minimum requirement. And they said that the next 20 years is very important because that's the period that our workforce numbers will be greater than our non-workforce numbers, elderly and children. And if we don't take advantage of that period, we will be in dire straits moving forward. What you have done with IWED and even before with your other entities is to intervene into recovering many of those who did not get that initial opportunity to ensure that they're able and capable to be productive. The unfortunate outcome of the report said that a Jamaican is 53% less productive than if they had adequate education and adequate health care. 53% less productive. If the GDP measures the country's productivity and the workforce is 53% less productive, imagine what the GDP would have been if the workforce should become 70% productive as versus 53% productive. And so, while some countries can escape productivity concerns because they're in manufacturing that has replaced human beings with machines through automation and mechanization, Jamaica, that is a service-based entity, is much more dependent on the human input and the human resource. Thank you, Dr. Hayes, for teaching me that as we move forward. And so the training and the capacity of the human element is of great importance, and even more importance to the service-dependent economies than it would have been for the manufacturing-dependent economies. So what our tourism industry needs, what our farms need, what our BPOs need are young people who are confident, able, and productive. And IWED, an appropriate name, because Profits is married. to your human resources. I thank you for your efforts, and I look forward to seeing the type of workers that are coming out and available to our industries across this country. And I look forward to the entrepreneurs that will have your name high as an example of what we can do when we apply ourselves, we apply our minds, and we love this country. Thank you, and good morning.
Thank you very much, Senator Crawford. You should use that piece, Ms. Hinchcliffe, in an ad about cleaning the full cube, as we say in Jamaican parlance. So clean, so well, that there are people who would be ready at the drop of a hat to move in. So, well done. That is very impressive. Now you are causing me to want to have a full cube as well. I'll work on it. Let's now hear from the Member of Parliament for Southeast St. Andrew, Mr. Julian Robinson.
Thank you very much, Dervan. Let me acknowledge our former Governor General, Sir Kenneth Hall, Chairman Wayne Chen, CEO Mrs. Audrey Hinchcliffe, my colleague Damian Crawford, and all the other distinguished guests who are here. And Reverend Finnegan, I'd like you to send me your interpretation of Psalm 23. It was actually the first time I've heard it explained in that way, and I had a great appreciation having heard it, and the members of the media. I think, as Dervan has said, when Audrey calls you to do something, you have to come. So Audrey invited me, and I ran into her in the supermarket, and I said, Audrey, Wednesday's a very busy day. And Audrey said, you have to come, and you have to come. And you have to come because Audrey's story is such an inspiration to all of us. Inspiration in terms of her entrepreneurship, inspiration in terms of her resilience, inspiration as a woman breaking so many glass ceilings. So I'm here because Audrey said I needed to come. I'm here secondarily because I'm the Member of Parliament, and anything in my constituency I'm absolutely pleased to be associated with. But what is being relaunched here is important to our country's growth and development. Damian spoke to some of it. I'd be radical in saying this is really the crime plan. It's a crime plan because if we don't get more young people trained and certified, then they become the ones who end up in antisocial behavior. You know the biggest request I get as an MP? I want a farm work ticket for government MP, right? And so we have to provide opportunities for those young people to see that you can stay in Jamaica, you can earn enough in Jamaica, you can build your families here in Jamaica, and you can grow businesses. And what IWED will do is provide competence-based training for those young people. Youngsters are shying away from longer programs because some of them want to learn and earn at the same time. So this gives you that opportunity that at the end of the day, you have certification that you can use locally, but you can also use internationally. And Damian made a good point. We are a services-based economy. We'll never do well manufacturing, never ever. But our productivity, as Wayne will point out, needs to improve. Right now, there's a strong debate about whether we have enough persons in the labor force to satisfy the demand. We're hearing complaints from the construction industry. We're hearing with the BPO, because what is happening is there's more competition within the sector for workers. We'll push up the wages, which the workers are happy about, but it ultimately, if the productivity doesn't go up, the country as a location will be uncompetitive relative to other locations. So we have to raise the productivity. But we also have to get more people who have opted out of the workforce, because that's also a big part of the problem. Yes, our unemployment numbers are the lowest that we've had ever, but there are too many Jamaicans who have decided that they will not participate. And so we have to give them hope and opportunity. And IWED provides that with the competence-based training and certification. And the certification is important. I don't know what the data is, whether it's 70% leave high school without any qualifications. It may be more. But when you look at both the victims and the perpetrators of crime, they fall into a category of mainly young men between 17 and 30 who have very little skills, low education, have been through 10 years of formal education and can barely read and write, and as such end up starting off in probably petty crime and migrate to big criminality. We have to arrest the problem, and arresting the problem starts here. There are many other things. I don't want to oversimplify it, but this is a critical element of it. So Audrey, congratulations on this relaunch. Congratulations on everything that you continue to do. And hopefully you'll continue to inspire generations of Jamaicans, generations of young women who can see themselves thriving in this economy. I'm happy to be here as Member of Parliament, and I will contribute in any way possible. I partnered with you. I've sent people here who work with Manpower, who have been trained by Manpower, and who have been able to lift their own economic circumstances. So good luck in everything you do, and I wish you very well. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Robinson. And now we will hear from Dr. Damian Black, Commissioner and Executive Director of the Jamaica Tertiary Education Commission. No. Yeah, but we'll accept you any day.
Good morning, everyone. I know that you have recognized that Damian Black is being represented by someone this morning. I'm Dana Facey, Director of Standards, Regulation and Institutional Support here at the Jamaica Tertiary Education Commission. And it is my pleasure to represent Dr. Black this morning and to extend to IWED my sincerest congratulations. Please applaud them. They are registered with the Jamaica Tertiary Education Commission for the maximum period of time that is available, which is 5 years, and so we commend them for this registration. It is not an easy feat. I'm sure Mrs. Hinchcliffe would remind herself of that, and we really want to extend our congratulations to you. If you reflect on our history in Jamaica, you will remember that higher education is just not something available to everyone. And so what IWED is doing in relaunching its programs and going higher, as is our mantra at the Commission, is exemplary. You're providing access to higher education to everyone who needs it. And so we commend you, we want to thank you, we want to encourage you to continue what you have done and what you continue to do in the delivery of quality programs, which would have come out in our assessment of you. And we want to encourage you to look forward to what we also have to offer at the Commission, which has to do with the placement of your qualifications on the National Registry of Qualifications. That's something at the Commission we're very passionate about, because if you are in plumbing, if you're in housekeeping, wherever you serve and you have the experience, you can come and get your qualifications recognized and placed. So we look forward to that partnership that we know we will have in getting qualifications registered and placed. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Dania Facey, right? I'll remember that face. At this time, we're going to invite Mrs. Althea Heron, Executive Director of the University Council of Jamaica, to bring greetings.
Thank you, Mr. Master of Ceremonies. former Governor General, Professor Sir Kenneth Hall, Minister Faber Williams in her absence, Minister of Education, Mr. Damian Crawford, Opposition Spokesperson on Education, Mr. Julian Robinson, Member of Parliament, Southeast St. Andrew, Mr. Wayne Chen, Chairman, IWED, members of the IWED Board, Mrs. Audrey Hinchcliffe, CEO Manpower and IWED, Ms. Dana Facey, representing JTEC, Dr. Paulette Shand, Senior Director, NCTVET, Dr. Caroline Hale, former Chairman of the University Council of Jamaica, special invited guests, special congratulations to Mrs. Karen Gale. Ladies and gentlemen, good morning.
Good morning.
Author Bernard Calvin Klein said, "In this age, you must be relentless, remarkable to stay relevant. If not, you will be relegated." The philosophy that this institution was founded on posits the importance and value of training cannot be overstated. Hence, we must acknowledge that improving worker education and development is one of the most effective methods for providing sustainable quality of life. Institutions that seek to develop programs that promote lifelong learning opportunities, which enable individuals to advance, upskill, and change industries, have the power to reduce income inequality, support domestic innovation, and build pride and dignity in our people. And that is why we are here this morning to celebrate the relaunch of such an institute. The Institute of Workforce Education and Development, which was founded 17 years ago to provide technical and vocational education and training, does its part in contributing to nation building. Recently, the Institute sought to widen its capacity for change and was designated as an accredited training organization by the National Council and on Technical and Vocational Education and Training, NCTVET. The management and staff of IWED must be lauded for their contribution towards education and training in social jobs. The World Economic Forum 2022 white paper on jobs of tomorrow noted that social jobs now play a pivotal role in the future-proofing of not only personal and professional development, but also sustainable development, indicating that technical and vocational education and training is even more valuable to our country and is bound to make an indelible mark. The white paper goes on to mention that social jobs are the most practical way to elevate the standard of living for both workers and those receiving social services, such as public health and sanitation, landscaping, home care workers, porters, customer service representatives, and even frontline staff. Therefore, it can be said that the investment in TVET and occupational jobs are here to help restart the economy in the post-pandemic era. These social jobs create resilience, boost social mobility, and prepare workers for their future as lifelong learners. IWED has now positioned itself today with its relaunch at the Institute to facilitate this change. IWED's investment in human capital through the offering of higher level qualifications on a TVET and occupational path is noteworthy and of value. Cabinet decision of March 2022 approved the transfer of the quality assurance functions from the NCTVET to the UCJ, signaling Jamaica's commitment to the creation of parity between technical and vocational training with academic studies. The UCJ, as the National External Quality Assurance Agency for Higher Education, is mandated to assure quality in higher education and training institutions, no matter the type of program. The UCJ remains steadfast and committed to assuring quality in higher education for all, keeping in mind that quality is considered the most essential tool for developing and improving education. In response to the changing needs of the workplace, the UCJ has recently completed the development of its micro-credential standards, which will be published soon. As I close, I leave you to ponder the words of William Butler Yeats. Education is not the filling of a pail, but the lighting of a fire. Good morning. God bless you.
Thank you very much, Mrs. Heron, for bringing greetings. And now, representing the Hart NSTA Trust, Ms. Paulette Shand.
Good morning, everyone. All protocols observed. Many are called, but few are chosen. So I am the lamb that is caught in the thicket this morning. So I am really the head of the IWED, but I'm representing the Hart Trust this morning on behalf of Dr. Tanisha Ingleton. The Hart NSTA Trust organization deems it an honor to be a part of this momentous occasion. The leaders of this prestigious organization, IWED, must be commended for the great legacy in workforce development which you have. This morning I'm seeing IWED, like the Hart Trust NSTA, as one of the critical pillars in Jamaica's economic development and security, and must provide vocational, lifelong learning and employability skills that pivot the economy towards productivity and higher value added activities. Now, I've heard mentioned before IWED, and we have had a very long-standing relationship with IWED. I'm so proud that we have been able to develop the competency standards, the qualifications that IWED uses to contribute to the development of the Jamaican workforce. I've also heard mentioned this morning about the rate of certification of the Jamaican workforce. I'm going to encourage the leaders of IWED to continue to work to enhance the quality of training and certification towards improving Jamaica's global ranking in the quality of technical, vocational education and training and global competitiveness index report. Also, continue to work to increase services to youth at risk. And last, continue to work and contribute to the strengthening of the TVET ecosystem. Reach and participation is what IWED should be about. Congratulations.
Thank you very much, Dr. Paulette Shand, for deputizing for Dr. Tanisha Ingleton, Hart NSTA Trust. And we want to thank Julian Robinson, who has to leave us now. Thank you very much, Mr. Robinson. So we have heard greetings. It's time for the endorsements, and we're going to begin with Ms. Maria Wedderburn, representing the global services sector, the private sector representative. Ms. Wedderburn? No? No. Okay. So we're going to move on. How about Mrs. Cordell Williams Graham, representing the Young Entrepreneurs Association?
Okay. Thank you. I see a lot of friends in the crowd, so I'm not going to start calling names in case I get into trouble, right? But good morning to all specially invited guests. As everybody has said, you know, it's so important that we showed up today. And for me, it's very important that, you know, the YEA is represented here because as Ms. Hinchcliffe mentioned, you know, she is the mother, one of the founding mothers. So we have the founding mothers and founding fathers with Mr. Chen of the Young Entrepreneurs Association. So we had to be here. And not only do I represent the YEA today, but we also represent the MSME sector. And as Damian said, you know, we are the drivers of productivity because we actually employ over 80% of the employed labor force of Jamaica. And so it's very important the type of persons that work with us because they have to be increasingly productive to contribute to economic growth, and they have to add increasing levels of value, especially to respond to the sectors that are emerging in our economy. And so today, you know, as the sector that runs things, you know, we had to quickly buy into the vision of Mrs. Hinchcliffe and the manpower team. You know, it's a lady for such a time as this, and it's an institution for such a time as this. I think it was Damian that said 70% of the workforce is not certified. Who was that? Right? So it is so important that we have to be importing people, right? When we have persons who, when they go anywhere else in the world, you know, we set the tone as Jamaicans. So we had to buy into this, and so we are so looking forward to partnering, this continued partnership that we have forged with the IWED team, and we look forward to contributing greatly to this initiative. And today I just want to congratulate Ms. Hinchcliffe. I don't know the words to use to express how proud I am of Ms. Hinchcliffe, and I must big up also Ms. Verica. And I have to use the word big up, right? Ms. Verica Bennett, who has been working with us, and I look forward to working with our new principal, Ms. Karen, right? Yes. So more power to you, Ms. Hinchcliffe, and yes, your legacy is well made. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mrs. Cordell Williams Graham, President of the Young Entrepreneurs Association. And now we're going to hear from a student representative, and that student representative is Mr. Carlton Wilson.
Morning. I'm a bit shy in front of persons, so I'll have to admit. I'm good over the phone, but not good in crowds. Miss H can tell you. The collection officer for manpower, so from time to time I try and do my best to do Mrs. H duties on a day-to-day basis. All right, so. So good afternoon again, good morning I should say. We are here to commemorate the induction of a facility, the new grounds of a facility, I should say, that is a vital role in our nation's workforce and improving our productivity as well in our Jamaica's workforce nation. Because what's a country without education? But a country bound towards demise. And with IWED, I can tell you, it's a lovely, lovely school. It's a lovely school. My brother is also a prodigy of the school as well. He left from high school, came to IWED, started, IWED even assisted him getting work as well. So he's a part of our nation's productivity as well, improving the numbers from 53 to the 70, you like to see Mr. Crawford. I would say is that I am looking forward to be a part of another program as well, because I'm a recent graduate of Business Admin Level 3. I thought myself, so I am looking forward, Ms. Bennett. Thank you for taking me to this journey so far. Wasn't easy, late nights along with other studies as well, but step by step, with endurance and faith from the Almighty as well, I was able to obtain this level 3. And Ms. Bennett, I'm willing to work more with you, more and more. I want more education. I want to see more people push out like this as well. It's sad to see our young youths not gravitating towards certain things, but I am one of the youths that will say, I don't want to be a part of a statistic, but I want to be a part of a creation or development of a better nation. So thank you, Mrs. H. If it wasn't for you, I wouldn't be here. So thank you as well.
Thank you very much, Carlton Wilson, and would like to use this opportunity to thank His Excellency for spending some time with us. As I gather, yes, I gather he has to leave us now. Thank you very much. Thank you. Same? Okay. Okay. All right, so if you're the driver of any of these vehicles, or is it one vehicle? Looks like 0752GC, white Subaru Forester. No, nobody can identify with that unit? Okay. 0752GC, or is it GG? GG. And it's not the Governor General's vehicle, is it? Okay, that's the photographer's vehicle, one of the photographers. And how about a gray Nissan 7625 GV? Thank you. Thank you very much. All right, so it's time for a little more entertainment before we hear from the chairman of IWED. What did I miss? Okay, so earlier on we heard from young violinist Giovanni Williams. He's coming back to entertain us before we properly introduce Mr. Wayne Chen and have his remarks and continue with the program as follows. We have come a far way, still a little ground to cover, but we thank you for staying with us. Please welcome Giovanni Williams once again. please. At this time, we'd like to acknowledge the presence of our Minister of Education, the Honorable Fable Williams. We're going to have the introduction of Mr. Wayne Chen now, and then we will hear from Mr. Chen himself. But first, Denworth Finnekin with the introduction.
Master of Ceremonies, Mr. Malcolm, former Governor General Sir Kenneth Hall, Minister, how are you? Minister Fable Williams, MP Julian Robinson, Senator Damian Crawford, representing Dr. Damian Black, Dania Facey, welcome. Mrs. Althea Aaron from UCJ, Dr. Paulette Chan, representing the Heart NSTA. Other distinguished guests, well, let me acknowledge Dr. Caroline Hale, former chair of UCJ and former executive director of the Heart Trust NTA, and a friend of IWED, and want to acknowledge also Mrs. Karen Gale, incoming director. Other specially invited guests, ladies and gentlemen, good morning. Good morning. Morning. I'm a little nervous. Yes, because Tanisha is leading France 1-0, and Australia is leading Denmark 1-0, and I have a 2 o'clock appointment with Poland. So you understand why I'm a little nervous. It's really a given privilege and an honor to introduce the chairman of IWED in my capacity as deputy chairman. Wayne Christopher Chen, one who I've known a long time ago, from the day of A&P. Yes, that precedes Super Plus. Wayne Christopher Chen is chairman of Super Plus Food Store, Petrojam, and Southern Regional Health Authority, and also deputy chairman of the Betting, Gaming and Lotteries Commission. He is the president of the Caribbean Employers Confederation, which represents 18 organizations, and is a member of CARICOM's Digital Skills Task Force and Human Resources Development Commission. He's also a past chairman of CVM Television, the Urban Development Corporation, that's UDC, the National Land Agency, National Gallery of Jamaica, NCB, NCB Cayman, and the West Indies Trust Company. He's also a past director of the National Commercial Bank, Victoria Mutual Building Society, and he was the founding member of the Caribbean Policy Research Group, CAPRI, and was its first chairman. He was Jamaica's Observer 1998 Business Leader of the Year and is co-author of Reggae Roots, the story of Jamaican music, and executive producer of Toots and the Maytals, Grammy-nominated album, Ska Father. Ladies and gentlemen, put your hands together to make welcome Chairman of IWED.
Old customer, you know. But you know how time flies. That's almost 40 years ago. It's amazing. But time has stopped still for our chairman. Madam Minister of Education, who I also knew in a former life. I don't tell people about former lives, you know, it's like I've lived several lives in this little country of ours. Senator Crawford, who I knew as a protesting student walking down, storming Jamaica House Gate, but that was that was a little while ago in a former life. Caroline, of course, Dr. Hale. Other distinguished guests, too many to name individually. It's a great pleasure for me to be here. You know, when they say when Audrey calls you have to say yes. We had other projects, we have many projects on the stove, let me put it in those terms. But this one is particularly valuable because it represents something that, and a passion of hers. And it's a fantastic thing when your vocation and your passion meet each other at this particular nexus. But a passion of hers has always been upskilling the whole workforce. Now, somebody say I can't boil the whole ocean, but each of us have a role to play in terms of holding on to some part of it and making a significant contribution. That's for another occasion, but I want to take up on where Senator Crawford left off. It's not on the shoulders of the current Minister of Education. The fact is that Jamaica's education system has taken a lot of our investment, and the return has not been, for many, many, many years, for decades, what we ought to have gotten back for it. I mean, each year you read the headline. I think last year, when the budget was read, education got 114 billion, and it would have gotten more since. We're talking about 6% of GDP, which puts us right up at the upper level for a middle-income developing country in terms of the spend. Jamaica spends more of its GDP on education, and more when you consider one study a few years ago that was shown to me pointed out that the state spend, that 6%, is again matched by parents, and we're talking about actual spend. We're not talking about sweat equity. Spend, cash, by employers to retrain, and yet still we know what we know. If we use 5 CSEC subjects as the benchmark for completing secondary education, then the majority of our students have failed. This can't be good for the country, can't be healthy in any way. There's an old adage, and it has been oft-repeated in this country, that an educated country, and I don't make a distinction between education and training. A well-socialized, educated, trained country does not stay poor. And I'm not talking economically poor, poor in the fullest sense of being poor. So if education, training, socialization is going to be at the heart of our development, we have not done well there. The member of parliament who just departed said, this is the crime plan, but this is the plan for so many other things. If I have said to several prime ministers in the past, both administrations coming and going, that the most important ministry in Jamaica, perhaps after finance, is the Ministry of Education. It's an awesome responsibility. And we have put a lot of legacy and cumulative issues onto the shoulders of whoever happens to wear that title at any particular time. But the fact is that we didn't come here overnight. We took a long time getting here. And we are well aware of what issues are, you know. An old friend of Audrey and I, you know, I had a aha moment many years ago. I was at a conference in St. Lucia, and Robert Gregory, who at the time was at Heart Trust, happened to be at a different conference, but we had breakfast together. And he said, you know, we haven't taken the plantation out of education. Caroline, you and I have discussed that, same point. The fact is that we inherited a system that served its purpose at a particular point in our history. But 60 years ago, we got the reins and the responsibility to make it significantly different, to work for all of us, not to create a small, well-educated elite that we parade around and say, the system is doing well because, look at Damien, he's bright, articulate, but he's the 1%. My concern has never been the output of our traditional high schools. You know, I'm a Christian man, and I'm not even fretting about a Homewood or a Knox. I'm more fret about the Troy and the Christiana, I was on the board as a 20-something, on the board of Christiana High in those days. And when I looked at a school that had more students than a Manchester High or a Knox or a Descartes or a Bishop Gibson, and it didn't even have a decent play field, that were on 2 shifts, that the students were struggling without the community support, because they all get the same allocation from the Ministry of Education. But it takes a village to raise a child. And if the one parent is in Cayman, the community support is not there because everybody is struggling, the output is not a surprise. So here we are, IWED, wedding, parents, private sector, public sector. It's a very, it's a fortuitous marriage. It's a fortuitous marriage because it cannot be on the shoulders of the state alone. But we have to find a way now to engage, in this instance, the private sector. Something Audrey and I have spoken about many, many times over the years. How do we make education and training more responsive to the needs of the market? How do we make education and training fit for purpose? Which is, how do we train, socialize, put in the skills, the mindsets, everything into our citizens, that when they go out to become economically independent, because I don't say people must go beg a work, you know. People must go out and become economically independent. If you choose to take a job for somebody, an employer, fine. If you choose to work for yourself, and not just as an entrepreneur, because the new world, the new digitized world, the new interconnected world means you can work for yourself, physically located in Jamaica, but working anywhere once you have the appropriate skills and good internet. It's very possible. Here is the little alarm now. Sorry for my 5 minutes are up, but when Julian, my good friend, Member of Parliament, Robinson, mentioned a while ago that one of the greatest aspirations of his constituents is to get a farm work ticket. It's something I see everywhere. In fact, I was in Canada just a few weeks ago on the fact-finding trip, mission, learning more about apple farming than I ever thought I would ever know in this lifetime. But coming as a hillsman from North Manchester, where a lot of the farm workers come from. So I was a little surprised. I actually met one of Aunt Julian's constituents. And I said, but you're an urban farmer, man? He said, yes. But he had, when he went down to the selection process at the Ministry of Labor, he was asked some questions about farming, but he had done a lot of reading, and he was actually doing some farming in his small community, open lot farming. So he was able, and he was pretty good. I mean, knew the types of crop, what is appropriate, soil types, everything. But I say that to say that even farming, even that farm worker has to be upgrading his skills year to year. And it's not a gradual or incremental risk in the loss of jobs. It is going to happen in huge, discrete, and sudden pieces. Why do I say this? I met tobacco farmers, and when I say tobacco farmers, and Jamaican farm workers, who, when they introduced a tobacco harvesting machine about 20 years ago, 3 out of 4 jobs disappeared overnight. When you walk in the apple fields now, the new plantings of apples, the old tree took 8 years to come to fruition. Had a lot of branches, a lot of leaves, 50% yield because the sunshine doesn't come into the inner branches the way it does on the outer. So the outer apples are nice. They reach on your supermarket shelf. Inner apples, apple juice, apple cider. The new apple trees are something completely different. It's like a, like a stick with apples coming off it. 90% yield, bears in 3 years. But guess what? Jamaican laborers, and I put that in quotation marks because they are skilled workers, come up and they pick off the leaves. They know what the young apples come off to maximize the yield. So it is manual work in a narrow sense, but it is very highly skilled and specialized work in another. But the scariest part of it is that the new plantings of apples are all a set space apart. So you see how this corridor runs on here. And they say it's wide enough for the train. And what is the train? A tractor and the little trailers that go down and the apples are going in. But one of the farmers pinched me and said, it's also wide enough for the robot. The robot has not been built yet, but there's an expectation that at some time in the near future, some Japanese or Chinese or Korean company is going to design an apple picking robot that will just go down the field and pick off the apple because the trees are already designed in a way that they are easy to pick. So one day we're going to wake up on that farmer ticket if you don't have some higher skill to offer. And Jamaicans are already offering the higher skills, you know. I've met all-rounders. Yes, they go to, you know, pick apples and so on, but also maintaining equipment, operating trucks, operating in the factories, whatever. I say this to say you have representatives here today from the global services, the business process outsourcing. It is often said, but I don't know how seriously we are taking it, that if you're not upskilling, you run the risk of, just as we see this huge improvements in employment. Before the pandemic, I believe we were just shy of 40,000 jobs. It fell off a little bit during the pandemic, and then suddenly it burst out before. In fact, I think the only thing restraining more employment in the global services is that the high schools are not putting out sufficient quality of graduates that will meet the standard of the global services. But in parallel with what's happening is that risk. The risk is that it becomes more and more cost sensitive. You're competing with the Philippines, you're competing now with Bangladesh, you're competing with Vietnam, you're competing with many countries. But more significantly, you're competing with artificial intelligence. So Jamaica is a small player in the global market. There are millions and millions of jobs that have gone to offshoring, nearshoring, what they call it again? I forget the euphemism we use in the corporate world, Minister. Shared services. I love that one. Shared services, when the actual cost of tenure and employment becomes burdensome and you send it over to Audrey to find a solution for you. But the fact of the matter is, if we are not looking at the current state of global services as a break, a sign-up, a pause to say, look guys, you guys have a chance now to get your house in order. No different from we had when we had the 807 garments back in the 80s. Old enough to remember these things. That if we are not using this time to train up very quickly, one day we might wake up and when those contracts start to go, we have a lot of young people standing around and saying, what happened? The other thing we should be looking at is, now that you are sitting down at a workstation, whether you're working from home or whether you're working in one of these big complexes down here on Halfway Tree Road, what are you learning in terms of your personal development that can move you up the chain, that you can seek your own opportunities? Because there are numerous, I know many young Jamaicans, you know, I think it was Colin Hill that put me onto that a long time ago, you know. I won't tell you about that conversation, but that's another long story, long time ago. Many young people are already finding their own opportunities elsewhere in the world. They find it in the music industry. They make rhythms, sell them in the Netherlands, Carlin remembers the conversation now. There are many people who are doing that already for themselves. So it's not just going to be the big factory type BPO. There will always be a place for that if we train up. Because one day they might be empty, no different from the garment sector when it moved on, if we're not training up. So we have that great opportunity to do so now. I think I'm burning up my time here at the mic, but I look forward to this great adventure. I thank Audrey for giving me this opportunity. I told her already, you know, that I became a grandfather on Sunday, so you can congratulate me. For the first time, I had to run out of London to be here this morning. I landed in Jamaica last night. But Audrey Hinchliffe, you're a fantastic lady. This venture, which has been bubbling and is going to flourish and blossom, is a very important venture. It fits squarely into your vision and your work, which is important. And I know it will go from strength to strength. Thank you for this opportunity.
Thank you very much, Grandpa. It is time now for us to have the principal's report. The outgoing principal is Mrs. Verika Bennett Davidson, and you would have heard by now that the incoming principal is Karen Gale. Let's welcome Verika Bennett Davidson.
His Excellency Sir Kenneth Hall, former Governor General, who has left us. Honorable Favour Williams, Minister of Education and Youth, and also my Member of Parliament for Eastern St. Andrew. Senator Damian Crawford, a youngster that I'm going to claim because I'm part of his development as well. Welcome. Mr. Julian Robinson has left, and he would have told you too, because he didn't want to go that route to say how much I have helped him, and because of that, he's given so much to us at IWED in terms of training, when we're looking for students, and so on. There are two constituencies that I look out for, and I'm going to claim privilege, Eastern and Southeast. The new chairman of IWED, Mr. Wayne Chen. Other board of governors, where's Mr. Finnegan? He stepped out. And she's always with us, Miss A.C. White, who gives so much since she's been on this board. Donated books for the library. When we're ready to fix up anything, she jumps in her car and she comes. Joseph, don't fire her. Heads of agencies of government, institutions, and I'm talking about places like some shop teachers, colleges, and institutions, and then the agencies from which you've heard. NCTVET, all the others, Heart Trust, NTA, and so on. All our partners, because we could not have done it without our partners. And I recognize again Cordell, YEA, and you will hear about some others coming up. Distinguished ladies and gentlemen all, Manpower and IWED staff, led by our CEO, a pleasant good morning to you all. Today is such a special day for IWED, and by extension, our parent company, Manpower and Maintenance Services Limited Group. This relaunch, you've heard from our CEO, but it has been determined based on earlier foundation laid when IWED was established on October 12, 2005, and the subsequent developments which emanated over the years up to its present existence. The records will show that shortly after 2005, actually in July 2007, IWED received its final registration as an independent school under the Education Act of 1965 and the Independent Schools Regulation of 1973. Then, in August of that same year, it was incorporated under the Companies Act as a limited company. So we are legal. We have status. But it would be remiss of me not to recognize that in 2012, when there was a rebranding of IWED, this was because of the work done under the leadership of former director, Miss Melva Blake. I want you to recognize, she's watching, I think, on Zoom. And her work led to IWED receiving accreditation from the National Council on Technical Vocational Education and Training as an ATO, an accredited training organization. What were the programs that we were accredited for then? Customer service, housekeeping, room attendant, data operations, assessment only. And all these were just at level 1 because they were basically foundation courses. That's where we started from. But the work continued in earnest during 2017 to ensure the retention of accreditation status for the next 4 years to 2021. And so in November 2017, following resubmission of application for accreditation and subsequent evaluation, housekeeping, laundry attendant was accredited as a new program, and housekeeping, linen room attendant, and business administration in terms of secretarial skills were accredited at level 2 now. So we moved from level 1 and we went to level 2. Follow me now, we know. Then there was also the reaffirmation in data operations and accreditation of general office administration. That's 2017. I crave your indulgence to recognize that during these years, there was one constant in the House, and that is, you've heard that she's not here, Miss Renee Campbell, on whom there was total reliance as a repository of the records to enhance the progress of IWED. So she could tell me, when I joined 2017, where to find what Miss Melville left and what to do, who to contact, and so on. So I want you, please, she's in the hospital now, please lift her up in our prayers, because she's been a valuable member of the team. No time was wasted. You'll hear more when I come to that. No time was wasted. So shortly after receiving the second accreditation from NCTVET, the focus had to be moving the institution to a higher level. So moving it from the level 1 and level 2 courses, going up now to level 3 and above, which really belongs in the tertiary realm. It meant doing the following things: participating in several capacity building workshops and seminars, either with UCJ, the Ministry of Education and Youth, NCTVET, private sector groups. We went all over to every single capacity building workshops that we could be a part of. It meant doing a SWOT analysis of IWED to see where our strengths were, what needed to be fixed, what needed to be put in place, because we were on a mission. It meant determining the needs of IWED, and it meant upgrading of existing facilities, upgrading of equipment, upgrading of documents. By that I mean writing policies that were absent, policies that in the tertiary realm you must have. For example, the whole business of plagiarism, the whole business, yes, of sexual harassment in the workplace, policies that are current in the Jamaican sphere, but also relevant to tertiary education. Having been audited and having satisfied the requirements of both institutions, IWED was granted, you heard earlier, stage 2 registration as a higher education institution with UCJ, and under the Higher Education Brokers and Providers classification with Jamaica Tertiary Education Commission. And we have that, yes, we have that status for the next 5 years. 2022, you can do the maths. So what do I say now? IWED is now on a trajectory of becoming a college for workforce education and development. So we're moving now from IWED to CWED. And this, we are targeting 2026 to get to that destination. And that is in our strategic plan, which we have developed and presented to our agencies or accreditation agencies, 2022-2027. How will we achieve this? We will achieve this by developing and offering new programs that are generic to IWED. Right now, we are doing brokers programs for other institutions, a number of them, and you'll hear more about that. But the time has come for us to write our own programs because we are a unique workforce development institution, and we do things differently. So, very soon, in January, you will be seeing some advertisements are going out now, and we will be implementing our first generic IWED course, which is supervision for the cleaning industry. And of course, you will understand why, right? You heard about our CEO and how she started the little cleaning industry, cleaning hospitals and so on. The people say to us, you have been training all of our persons in 1 day and 2 days seminars. We want something for our supervisor. So we listen to them, and we have developed a course called Supervision for the Cleaning Industry, and that is IWED's course. So I want you to give the kudos to our Technical Advisory Committee, or TAC, that actually developed that course, and now they're going to be hearing back from the marketplace when they start, where we start implementing to see how we can tweak, what can be fixed, and so on. Because there's a process to develop courses that we have to comply with our agencies. Right, Dr. Shand and everybody else? Right. We'll also be offering short professional courses to satisfy the job market. You heard earlier that people are so impatient now. They don't want these long 4 and 5 years degrees. They want to go to the place of work. Mr. Wayne Chen, right? Yes. And so they've said to us, and we have listened, that come up with some short professional courses. And so you've heard from Cordell, we have a set of courses developed in association with Young Entrepreneurs Associates, because you have to respect the millennials, you know, right? And you will be seeing these courses rolled out in January. Change management is one. Financial management, because even some young entrepreneurs, they are going into business, but they don't understand the money business, and that's why they are losing out. So these courses are coming on stream in January 2023 as part of our set or group of short courses to satisfy the job market. We also will be strengthening existing partnerships and creating new ones. And let me just pause here to say that the GSS, you've heard, before it became GSS, it was BPO. And we wrote various projects and got selected through Heart NSTA Trust. So we were in St. Thomas, we were in Kingston and St. Andrew, and we were training entry-level workers that the industry needed at that time in what is called the fundamentals of customer engagement. And you know how many persons we trained? 600 persons in that program for Heart NSTA Trust as a partner. Now, the BPO has evolved into GSS. And there again, and you heard a little snippet from my CEO, that we were called to participate in a training program and several training programs because the GSS felt that time had come for them to move from the entry level to the other level. And they wanted their middle managers to be trained because they had some of the skills. But in terms of managing people and those other skills that are relevant, they were coming up short. And so we are, and I'm proud to say, IWED is a sought-after training provider for the GSS industry. And we have some of the major companies I'm not going to name them because I didn't ask them if I could use their names, right? Don't want anybody to sue us. So we have several of their, what we call apprentices, and these are their middle managers. And we're training them all online, right? They are being trained in supervisory management and leadership and management, okay? So, strengthening partnership, as I said. You've heard that we had a program in Montego Bay, sponsored by USAID and FHI 360. We met with National Security Minister and the office, Permanent Secretary and all that. And there's a problem in Montego Bay with crime and violence among young people. And so we wrote a project and offered it to USAID to say, we could make a difference in Montego Bay. And it got accepted. And in a partnership again with my parent company, with the blessings of our CEO, that gave approximately 40% of the cost of that training from manpower resources, we were able to train 28 lovely youngsters. They came from Norway, they came from Canterbury, they came from Rose Heights, I'm telling you. And when I first went into those communities, Renee Campbell and myself, and we spent 2 days going in the communities and meeting these guys, we said, my God, is it going to be possible? Because just looking and seeing how they looked, and when we reasoned with them and showed them that we're not there to bring the police on them, we're there to change their lives, and they can ward themselves to us and be confident that we won't tell anything that would get them into trouble. And so they trod with us on the path. And I'm here to tell you that they all graduated. In fact, Minister Chang was supposed to be the guest speaker, but he sent Senator from Montego Bay. And those youngsters, including a teenage mother with her baby, she took that child every Saturday for the entire day to training. And we had a Nancy McLean formerly of the Pegasus teaching them food service techniques. And to see those youngsters setting for a 5-course meal and telling you which glass you should lose and use, which one with the stem and which one is, and I stood there, and the USAID representative who actually joined some of the classes to learn said, this is awesome. And you can follow newspapers, the work, the writing is there about that program. So just to say, we will continue. We will continue, and Madam, my MP, please push some fire for us to get some more resources to go into these communities, because you have some communities like that in your constituency, right? Part of the crime plan. Okay. So, then now, the new ones, new partnership. I have in the house Principal Dr. Gow Morrison from Sam Sharp Teachers College. Yes. We are now going into Montego Bay because Dr. Gow Morrison says to us, what you are doing in Montego, in Kingston, we need it down this side of Jamaica. So we need a partnership with you guys. And we have just, in fact, we'll be signing a partnership agreement just after this function, another couple of days, to go into Montego Bay to take some of these very programs that I told you earlier about. Whilst we were in discussion with Sam Sharp, guess who came into the house from overseas? Delaware State University. And they have, the vice president came, and he sat with us and our CEO, and he said, well, with his staff that came with him, we've heard so much about this IWED, and we want to be a part of it. We want to bring some programs to you, starting with associate degrees. So that's a partnership that we are going to be pursuing on our trajectory to becoming IWED. Then, very important, if we are a tertiary institution, and Dr. Carlin Hale will tell you that she's been pushing me. Huh? There were days when I said, oh my God, this is too much. And she said, work with it, and apply for so and so, do so and so. Right? So, we'll be engaging in research because of the church institution. We must do research. How are we going to decide what the market needs? What is the relevance of the programs that we want to offer, we're offering? So we'll be engaging in research to determine relevance of programs going forward. And finally, we'll be satisfying the requirements for registration and accreditation, both locally and internationally, because guess what? It is a global space. IWED cannot remain just in Jamaica. We have to go in the Caribbean with what we offer, right? So we'll be seeking out, because if we're going Delaware State and all those others, we have to meet the accreditation standards overseas. So we'll be satisfying those requirements. And so I'm just to endorse that we believe in competency-based model learning. We believe in micro-credentialing, a baby of Dr. over there. Huh? Because you can take a long program that runs for 2 years, as in the case of an associate degree, but persons want just a unit or two credentialing, and we will give that to them as well. We'll take you from where you are. If you're coming in with nothing at all, not even entry level, foundation level 1, we will work with you and we will take you on the path, right up to where you want to go, level 8, which is equivalent to a PhD or a doctorate or whatever, right? We believe in prior learning assessment because we can't have persons in the marketplace. They're on their jobs. They're managers of their small businesses, right? But they just need to get that piece of paper and to know other things that they did not know. So we look at the prior learning that they have, and we walk them through, and we guide them, and we help them to get their certification. And there will always be a place at IWED for on-the-job assessment. And let me tell you that all our programs have a component of employability skills, because the job market is saying, we get these persons, and they come with the hard skills. We just had a meeting with Jamaica Teas, for example, another partner that will be training staff for shortly. And they said to us, we train the people to operate our machines, but guess what? They must learn to come to work on time. They must learn to work in teams. They must learn to take instruction from their supervisors. They must learn that when you give them their gears to protect them, they must wear them and not get into accidents to come to want to sue, because they're not going to get any money. If you give them the gears and they don't wear and they get an accident, they're on their own. So we teach them these employability skills because they have to understand. Having said all of that, I am confident that IWED, with our new principal, Karen Gale, and bolstered by the Board of Governors, under the leadership of our visionary and our businessman who knows the way, IWED is in good hands. And may I just tell you that our sixth form program minister, you will hear from one of our graduates later on, because she will say something to you. She came out of our sixth form program, which we also have with the Ministry of Education. Thank you all.
Talk about tell all. The secret is out. It's all out there now. Thank you. Thank you very much, Mrs. Verika Bennett Davidson. Time for some more entertainment before we hear from the Honorable Fable Williams. And I see young Giovanni Williams making his way to ensure that all systems go. And this is going to be his, for want of a better expression, his swan song. This is the last entertainment segment. Please welcome once again Giovanni Williams. Williams. Now, according to my program, we're supposed to be having the official relaunch of IWED right now, so there seems to be some choreography and actors in place. So you know yourselves, whatever needs to be done, let it be done now. And the virtual presentation led by Mr. Peter James. So lights, camera, IWED.
Good afternoon, everyone. Our protocols observed, our distinguished guests. We take this opportunity today to officially relaunch IWED and the new designation that they got as a tertiary institution. Under the vision of our CEO, Mrs. H., the guidance of our chairman and our board of directors of IWED, and execution of Mrs. Bennett Davidson and Renee Campbell, who have spearheaded this program, we now launch this building to commemorate this. So this is right. And the architect that put this together was Zane Finnegan. So let's go ahead and look at the transformation of what this building will look like. As IWED transform persons, teach a man for, give old adages, give a man a fish for a day, feed him for a day, teach him how to fish, feed him for life. We will now transform this building in order to teach other persons for life. We can go ahead and solar panels. Ladies and gentlemen, a vision.
Indeed. A lot more to look forward to. This is only the beginning, or as the song says, we've only just begun. Now, after all that theater, it's time for us to hear from the minister. Please welcome the Honorable Fable Williams, Minister of Education. Oh, the incoming principal of IWED, Karen Gale, will introduce the minister.
Master of Ceremonies, ladies and gentlemen, the Honorable Favour Williams has been serving as Member of Parliament for South East St. Andrew Eastern, since March 2016, when she was appointed Minister of State in the Ministry of Finance and the Public Service. From March 2018 to February 2019, Mrs. Williams served as the Minister without portfolio in the Ministry of Finance and the Public Service. And from February 2019 to September 2020 as the Minister of Science, Energy and Technology. Since September 2020, she has been our Minister of Education and Youth. Minister Williams is a chartered financial analyst by profession. She has an MBA with concentration in finance from the Wharton Business School at the University of Pennsylvania and a BA in economics from Harvard University in Cambridge, Massachusetts. Mrs. Williams is a former executive director of Kingston Properties Limited and the chief investment officer of J&B Limited from March 2005 to September 2007, with investment responsibilities spanning the trading department, investment research, and pensions. In 2004, Mrs. Williams consulted with the Financial Services Commission, the FSC, in the area of research and policy. Prior to her return to Jamaica, she was Senior Vice President at Putnam Investments in Boston, a 10 global mutual fund manager. Her investment work spanned broad cross-sections of industries. She also had portfolio management responsibilities for an equity portfolio product and led Putnam's efforts to incubate a market-neutral hedge fund. Mrs. Williams' investment experience also includes approximately 5 years as Vice President at Wellington Management Company in Boston, Massachusetts. Her focus was on fixed income security investments. Prior to Wellington, she was a fixed income analyst at Northwestern Mutual Life Insurance Company in Milwaukee, and shared portfolio management responsibilities for a $3 billion portfolio. She was a member of the team that provided macroeconomic and market input for both the strategic and tactical portfolio decisions. Mrs. Williams also gained experience at the Equitable Real Estate Investment Management in Chicago, Illinois. While there, she performed valuation analysis on commercial real estate properties. She also worked as an information systems analyst for Morgan Stanley, an American multinational financial services corporation that provides securities products and services to customers, including corporations, governments, financial institutions, and individuals. So you see, the minister is more than just Minister of Education. She brings so much to her portfolio. She is married to Leo Williams, and they have 2 children. Ladies and gentlemen, please help me welcome to address us the Minister of Education and Youth, Honorable Favour Williams.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Incoming Principal, Karen Gale, thank you for that introduction. Let me begin by acknowledging our Master of Ceremonies today, Mr. Malcolm. Let me acknowledge as well all the members of the star-studded list of greeters and endorsers. Top of the list, Senator Mr. Damian Crawford, and I know there were other colleague member of parliament here who've left. I know as well from the Ministry of Education and Youth, we had Damia Facey representing Dr. Damian Black, our Commissioner and Executive Director of the Jamaica Tertiary Education Commission. Let me acknowledge as well Chairman of IWED, Mr. Wayne Chen, and thank you for a most engaging remark this morning. Yes, very engaging. Let me acknowledge the person who's responsible for all of us being here today, Mrs. Audrey Hinchcliffe, CEO, Manpower and Maintenance Services, and she brought us here for the relaunch of IWED, Institute for Workforce Education and Development. I know that we have many more persons here, but let me acknowledge Dr. Gao from Sam Sharp Teachers College. And just to say, well, I have to acknowledge Dr. Hale, former UCJ, former Hart, former, yes, it's good to see you, Doctor. And just a coverall, just to say, distinguished ladies and gentlemen, members of the media, it is good to see all of you, and it's a delight to be here today at this relaunch. As you heard, it's an institution providing quality training and development programs. But beyond the mere provision of training and development programs, IWED makes a point of focusing on those possessing the will to overcome limitations. I know many persons believe that they can't go back to school, but we want to disabuse them of that notion. IWED is saying as long as you possess the will to overcome your limitations, opportunities are available. All of us here today know that a well-trained workforce is one of the key drivers of a country's prosperity and competitiveness. We also know that the gold is not in the mountains, that the gold is right here in our heads, in our creativity. And so if the knowledge and skills of the workforce will determine the wealth of nations in the future, then education and training will become key determinants of the wealth of nations. Wayne, I take your remark this morning, your observation, when you said that we've created a situation in which we view success as having attained 5 CSEC subjects with math and English. And for many decades, that was our mark. And so we find that annually, coming out of our high schools, of the 35,000 children who are born in Jamaica every year, we graduate from our high schools less than a third of students with 5 CSEC, including maths and English. And over those many decades, that was the one pathway that we had. And so I say, what of the other 2/3 of students who, for whatever reason, did not make the mark that we have set of 5 CSEC subjects with math and English? Should we continue to discard them? Should we not care about their opportunities as well? And so, for me, the answer was staring us in the face. Create other opportunities for those grade 11 students to also fulfill their potential. And so I'm delighted to know that IWED has taken on the Sixth Form Pathways program. One that when we announced it had such a blowback that it shocked me. But when I looked and saw where it was coming from, I was not daunted, because we were talking to parents who were saying to us, we are so glad for this program. Mothers who stood up when we were out talking about the program to say, how do I sign up my son? I don't want him to be at home. I'm not there. I have to go out and work a little job. I don't want my son to be at home. He's leaving high school at grade 11. How do I sign up? And so at the start of this school year, in September, prior to September, 17,000 students signed up for the Sixth Form Pathways program, including those who signed up for the traditional pathway, for the traditional Sixth Form program. And to those we say, of course we'll continue to support you. Government will continue to provide the support. We're not disturbing your program at all. Nothing about it will change. We're simply creating 2 other pathways for those students who, when they get to grade 11, their future is not as certain as those who are heading to the traditional pathway and then to tertiary. And so we have a technical pathway, we have a general pathway. The technical is the vocational pathway for students. The general is more for those students who got to grade 11 and have 1 or none. We're saying, we want you for another 2 years. Let us help you. We want to ensure that you're certified when you leave our institutions. There was the question as well as to why are we doing that? Why don't we pour everything into early childhood? Because that's the foundation. Why not shore up the foundation? And to that I say 2 things. One, those students are here now. What do you do with them? And number 2, given the enormity of the education sector and what we have to do, we cannot afford to be sequential in what we have to do. We can't stop the system and go and shore up early childhood. We have to do things simultaneously. And so we continue to invest in early childhood. Yes, it's been 20 years since the establishment of the Early Childhood Commission. And when you look at the numbers, government-funded, government-supported early childhood institutions account for about 20% of the early childhood sector, meaning there's a difference. I know we're not necessarily used to it. I wasn't until I got into the sector. There's a difference between a basic school and an infant school. An infant school is government-run, government-funded. They have trained practitioners in the infant schools. Infant schools can be standalone or connected to a primary school. A basic school is a privately run institution. If you look back in our history, that is how our early childhood sector started, and that's how it's grown. We have over 3,000 early childhood institutions scattered all over Jamaica. Anyone can wake up tomorrow morning and decide that they want to have a basic school. You need to go register with the Early Childhood Commission, and you need to begin the path to get to the 12 standards that we have. The modernization of the early childhood sector continues, and so we've been building out infant centers. We have also, as a government, started what's known as the Brain Builder Centers. Those are the equivalent of daycare centers for children who are between 0 to 3 years old. That's what the Brain Builder Centers are for. We have over 100 of those. And in them, they provide these young children with the stimulation that they need. They have trained practitioners in them, practitioners who understand how to relate to children, who are not afraid of having children play, how to guide them. That's what the Brain Builder Centers are for as we continue to transition and modernize the early childhood sector. Like I said, we're only in 1/5 of it right now. Over time, we're hoping that government, we're planning that there be a more significant presence in the early childhood sector. But all of the rules, all of the policies govern whether you're private or government. You have to be on the pathway to reaching the standards in that sector. So this year, for the first time, I'm delighted to report that we have undertaken what's called the Age 4 assessment, the Jamaica Age 4 assessment of our children in the early childhood sector, regardless of whether they're at a basic school or an infant school. And what that does is it looks at our children who are age 4 to say, are they having problems with early literacy or early numeracy? Are they having behavioral problems? This is an assessment, it's not a test. It's an assessment that's done in classroom by the teachers. The numbers are being collated now, but that tells us to the child that this child at age 4 is already having problems with early literacy and early numeracy. And what that gives us is rich data that will help us to intervene in the lives of those children so that by the time they get to primary school, they will be ready, right? Early data is showing maybe about a 10-15% of children in that category. And you can see they get to primary school at age 6. So we have 2 years to work with them, to engage mommies and daddies to say, you need to be reading more to your child. Those are the things, those are the interventions that we have that we will be doing in the early childhood sector. Additionally, we we assess as well for any special needs, because a child could be having a problem with their sight or something like that. So there's a second assessment that's done, so we catch any special needs and also do the intervention. And this is done so that when our children show up at primary school at age 6, they are in a better shape of readiness to take on primary school. And of course, there are a number of tests and assessments that are done at the primary school level, but importantly, it's the intervention that should be happening there so that when the child gets to grade 4 to begin the series of PEP exam, they're also ready, because there's PEP 4 at grade 4, PEP 5 at grade 5, and PEP 6 at grade 6. We mostly only hear about PEP 6 because that's the one that determines which high school you go to. But there are 4 of them, and it allows the teachers to ensure that they are helping along the way. Additionally, this year, for the first time as well, we have introduced specialist teachers in about 1/3 of our primary schools. Specialist teachers mean, well, let me contrast it this way by saying traditionally what you know is one teacher in a classroom teaching all subjects. God help you if the teacher don't like you, right? You have the teacher the whole day, the whole week. So we've introduced specialist teachers. So if you're a good math teacher and you love math, right, you'll be teaching math to grade 3, 4, 5. So we've seen this model at work elsewhere. It's given good results, and we believe it will too in Jamaican schools. So that's where we are in terms of our primary schools and the intervention that is there. when you transition to high school, obviously the transition is going to depend on your PEP grade, your marks, your scores from PEP, the high school that you choose, and the space at the high school. Those are the three factors that determine where you go in high school. And I have to say that we are at a good place in terms of the availability of spaces in our high school. I'm sure some of you here, when you look back in the history of education in Jamaica, there was a point in time, for a long time, when not all of our children were able to go to high school. I know, because I grew up in the days when you had to do common entrance. And if you didn't pass the common entrance, high school was not in your future. Some brave person, some brave politician, I'm sure Damien knows, stood up and said, all of our children born in Jamaica should go to high school. I'm sure the elite of the day probably didn't want that either, right? Because we have an elitist system. And at the time when that announcement was made, conditions were not perfect. We still have shift schools, right? Those were schools that became high schools. We still have some shift schools, which we are working on to de-shift. But it was a significant decision then, and it didn't matter where you were from or how much you had attained at primary school. We said at that time, all of our children need to progress through high school. So that's why I say we are at a good place just in terms of the availability of education to our children. Every child born in Jamaica has a space in a school in Jamaica. But where we are in 2022 now is the quality of that education. How can we engineer it so that more of our children are attaining at levels that all of us consider acceptable? And hence, when we look at high school and looked at the numbers again, we had to say we have to do something for all those children who get to grade 11 and are about to step out of the institution not knowing what their future is, and hence the Sixth Form Pathways program. There's a lot of work to be done in education. I'm not going to stand here, you know. You've been here and we just went through a significant deep dive into the sector, resulting in the Jamaica Education Transformation Commission report with many, many recommendations, and we've started on that journey to ensure that we prioritize and begin the work to implement the recommendations. Many of them have been highlighted before in prior reports. The issue has been lack of implementation. This time around, we are committed to implementing already. A major recommendation is the creation of the Jamaica Teaching Council, an environment in which teachers will be required to be registered and licensed to teach. That bill is making its way through Parliament. We have gone through a very long process. We are taking it through the Joint Select Committee, means we've opened it up for submissions, comments from a wide cross-section of persons. And we spent as much time as was needed to do that. So now we are going through that bill clause by clause, taking on board many of the recommendations that came to us. It will be a new regime in Jamaica, not the one that, it won't be dissimilar to to what we know of in other countries. Many of our teachers who go to the United States have to become registered and licensed to teach there. And we're saying there are just many positives about such a regime for us to take it on in Jamaica. Mrs. Hinchcliffe, I am delighted that you are relaunching IWED, that you are taking on just the training of the workforce. It has to be done. In Jamaica, we tend to think we can just wake up and do anything, like we can just wake up and be helpers. We can just wake up and work at a hotel. We can just wake up and be a gardener. We don't give a lot of respect to training and development. And I'm glad that you have taken it on to say that there's need for certification, there's need for training, there's need for certification. And at the ministry, we are supporting what your outgoing principal talked about, the prior learning assessment and recognition, and the provision of micro-credentials. These are indispensable tools to creating flexible learning pathways so persons can enter and re-enter education at whatever point it is that they want to do. We have to be flexible in how we offer it, the modality, and we have to allow persons to have lives outside of institutions rather than bound them to 4 years or 3 years of every day coming to the same institution. We have to be flexible, and that's what we are doing. So thank you for inviting me here. I wish you all the success. Know that the Ministry of Education is here to support you in what you're doing, because we know that this is all that you're doing will be for the benefit of Jamaica and for the development of our workforce. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen.
Thank you very much, Minister Williams. Quickly, before we make a presentation, there's a Subaru Impreza 3050JX. We're not very impressed that you have parked where you have. So let's create a better impression by this Subaru Impreza. Right. It's time for a very special presentation. And again, there are actors and there's choreography, and I will remove myself, I'll extricate myself while that plan is executed.
So Minister and Mrs. Hinchcliffe, I just ask you to join us here. Minister, as per the directives of Cabinet Decision 111 and 3514, we have assessed as the Jamaica Tertiary Education Commission the Institute for Workforce Education and Development, and have found them to be compliant in each of the 11 standards for registration, and ask that you at this time present to them their letter of registration under the classification of brokers and providers of higher education.
Let me read what it says. Ms. Verika Bennett Davidson, Principal, Institute of Workforce Education and Development, 1 Eureka Road, Kingston 5. Dear Mrs. Bennett Davidson, the Jamaica Tertiary Education Commission, JTEC, is mandated by Cabinet Decision 01-11 and 35-14 to undertake the registration of all institutions offering tertiary education level qualifications within Jamaica. Accordingly, JTEC undertakes inspection and the associated assessments of all aspects of an institution's establishment, operations, and level of qualifications against established standards. Further, the process and grant of registration is a precursor to the licensing of a tertiary or higher education institution that will be enshrined in legislation currently being prepared. This status indicates that an institution has attained minimum standards to operate and to deliver the programs and awards, facilitate the appropriate qualifications in keeping with its application for registration. So having completed its inspection and due diligence, JTEC is pleased to register Institute of Workforce Education and Development with effect from November 10, 2022 as a higher education provider and broker. Registration is for a period of 5 years and is subject to re-registration. Institute of Workforce Education and Development is registered to deliver a whole raft of programs in tourism and hospitality, business management, middle managers training for global services sector, among others. Congratulations, congratulations, Mr. Sensis. I'm delighted to present you with this letter.
This has been and continues to be absolutely awe-inspiring. Can we have another round of applause for the IWED team? It is time for us to invite Ms. Nerese Bailey to move the vote of thanks. Let's welcome Ms. Nerese Bailey.
Mr. Master of Ceremonies, distinguished guests, management guru Peter Drucker affirmed that learning is a lifelong process of keeping abreast of change and the most pressing task to teach people how to learn. Mr. Dervin Malcolm, MC extraordinaire, you have outdone yourself today in taking the wrapping of this event and presenting it for our pleasure. Thank you for demonstrating immense competence in this regard. You left us short of nothing today. We would not have been here had it not been for the providence of the Creator. and we relied on Bishop Denworth Finnegan to invoke his divine presence, guidance, and blessing throughout these proceedings and beyond. We are indeed grateful for your intercession on our behalf. Mrs. M. Audrey Stewart Hinchcliffe, we are again grateful that you have availed yourself to serve as our anchor with your inspired opening remarks, outlining the birth and growth of IWED into a higher education institution and broker. This event would not have been complete without the participation of our partners in nation building, Mr. Damian Crawford, Mr. Julian Robinson. We thank you for sharing the vision for Jamaica's future with IWED and the Manpower team as we continue on this path of youth empowerment. It is our absolute pleasure to have received greetings from leaders in the education sector. Mrs. Facey, Dr. Shand, Mrs. Heron, thank you for having taken the time to share with us and to encourage our efforts to go higher in meeting the mandate of strengthening the education and training landscape. As an educational institute, we not only educate and train persons for employment, but also as entrepreneurs. Thank you, Mrs. Cordell Williams-Graham. We are truly delighted that your organization endorses the mission and vision of IWED. Of course, as an institute for workforce training and education, we could not exist without our students who have selected us from among so many options for their education and development. Mr. Carlton Wilson, the student representative, thank you for sharing your student experience with us. It is our hope that you will inspire others to follow in your footsteps. Remember the words of B.B. King, who said, "The beautiful thing about learning is that nobody can take it from you." Thank you to Mr. Giovanni Williams, musician, for lending us your talent. You surely applied the condiments to this delicious meal we had today. Mr. Wayne Chen, IWED chairman, we appreciate your input in guiding this phase of the development of IWED as a permanent and integral part of Jamaica's education sector. Mrs. Verika Bennett Davidson, a remarkable woman, thank you for delivering the principal's report to us, giving us greater insight into the Institute's achievements since inception and the projections for the next 5 years. You have played an integral role in ensuring the sustainability, relevance, and growth of IWED. Thank you for your stellar service. Mrs. Karen Gale, incoming principal, we await your input and we are confident that you will apply your brand of excellence to this institution. Mr. Peter James and Mr. Finnegan, for showing us your presentation of IWED in its true form as an evolving entity that will remain relevant for years to come. Mrs. Favour Williams, Minister of Education and Youth, thank you for your engaging address and for reminding us that a well-trained workforce will drive our country's development and that our wealth lies in our people and the realization of their potential. Ladies and gentlemen, event organizers, students, graduates, all stakeholders, technical advisory committee members, lecturers, instructors, assessors, members of the media, members of the marketing team, both internal and external, thank you very much for beginning the future of IWED with us today. I am being told that we have refreshments for gathered company at the end of the event.
There are some presentations to be made. In the meantime, we thank Nerese Bailey for thanking everyone. Thank you very much, Nerese Bailey. Okay, now to the presentation.
And I just crave your indulgence to say that we have Brandy Simpson. She's a graduate of the sixth form program, and she's now employed by MMS as a clerical assistant to IWED. She's going to do a presentation to our minister.
Good morning, everyone. Honorable Minister Favor, on behalf of Manpower. Okay. Honorable Minister, on behalf of IWED and Manpower Maintenance Services, we'd like to thank you for attending our relaunch today. And also, we'd like to thank you for your support of the IWED work. And we know that you worked hard and pardon? Also, we'd like to thank you for your time being here with us due to your busy schedule and multitasking and be here with us. Thank you again.
All right, that's it. It would be fascinating to find out what the minister has in that pail. It looks like a pail. A lot of goodies, no doubt. Thank you very much, distinguished ladies and gentlemen. This has been great. We will now repair to the rear for refreshments.